New year, fresh start, time to recreate myself. What will I find when I walk down this path? New friends, new goals, new challenges to be met. I will meet them and I am going to succeed. New year, fresh start, it's time for self-discovery.
Episode 7. The Big Game. A great hush fell over the gymnasium as the doors to the far side entrance opened up. On one side of the gym, the parents, teachers, and fellow students of Arceados Academy sat waiting on bleachers. The other side bleachers were still empty, but all that was about to change. Noah's spirit trembled as a palpable holy aura slid across his skin. Warm, barely present energy tickled at his nerves, and his soul ignited with a renewed passion. A female figure dressed in flowing white robes and a strange conical hat stepped into the gym, and behind her stood dozens and dozens of people. The woman's robes were brilliantly white, like fresh undisturbed snow in a meadow. A dazzling embroidered golden star covered her right breast, and the same symbol covered the front of her hat. The base of her conical hat had a golden crown woven into it. She grinned at the Arceados Academy side of the gym with conceited arrogance. The woman had dark black hair that was tied into 3 thick braids. One braid fell over the left shoulder, and the other 2 hung behind her. Her green eyes fell upon Noah for but a moment before her attention drifted elsewhere. While the woman radiated with unquestionable smugness, the people behind her all had blank facial expressions with cautious, scorn-filled eyes. The woman walked toward the center of the floor where Headmistress Darbo and Demi waited. A couple of well-dressed attendants trailed the woman's steps. The dozens who had followed the woman turned into over 100, and quiet and solemn students, parents, and presumably teachers filled the other side of the gym to the brim. Noah leaned over to talk to Isa, who stood near him. Over the last few days, since he had agreed to keep her secret, Isa had been quite warm with him. It was nice.
So, I assume that's the Headmistress equivalent for St. Gabriel's?
Not just any Headmistress, but a High Inquisitor of the Church of the Sacred Star. Her name is Camille Farr.
Oh, it's been a long time since I've encountered the church.
Bad experiences?
Yeah, you could say that.
I'm not surprised considering their xenophobic rhetoric. Magebloods are barely tolerated. Though from the way you're insinuating, you may have had it worse than most of us.
A small smile crept across her face, and her voice fell to an even softer whisper.
You're not a mageblood, are you?
Tell me you're not involved with that pool too.
I bet on the fact that you were a mageblood. But I have a sinking feeling I lost. So, did I?
Noah just rolled his eyes. The players for the Essence Ball team for Arceados Academy had already lined up on the gym floor, in front of the crowd of their fans, peers, and families. On the far side of the gym, the St. Gabriel's Essence Ball team took their place. Like many of the others, the students on the team stared forward, with a silent sort of zealousness.
So, why are we playing them again? A bunch of the other teachers say that St. Gabriel's stands for everything that our school doesn't.
Isa just shrugged.
They're in our division.
Well, that was as good a reason as any, Noah supposed. Headmistress Darbo brought up the mic to her face, and she spoke.
Good evening. For those who do not know me, my name is Headmistress Emily Darbo, and I am the head administrator for Arceados Academy.
A thunderous cheer rivaling a dragon's roar erupted from the Arceados Academy's side of the gym. but silence saturated the other side. When the applause and excitement died down, Headmistress Darbo turned to face the students, parents, and the team belonging to St. Gabriel's.
I would like to extend a warm welcome to you, St. Gabriel's, as I do every year. Though our ideologies on many matters violently oppose one another, I certainly hope that tonight we can come together in the bonds of spirited and friendly competition.
Her attention locked with High Inquisitor Farx.
After all, we are here to have fun.
A brief moment of silence filled the gym, and then Headmistress Darbo handed the mic to the High Inquisitor. High Inquisitor Farx gently took the mic, and then beamed a sickeningly sweet smirk at the Headmistress. It only lasted for a moment, and then the High Inquisitor turned her back to her school. She swept her gaze over the demons, devils, magebloods, and more.
Good evening, Arceados Academy. It is a pleasure to return here after we defeated your team last year.
A slight groan rippled through the Arceados Academy side of the gym.
Yes, we will keep things friendly, but rest assured we will win. The holy and divine light of our students, our faith and our dominance will never falter to the likes of you.
The Headmistress's voice barely drifted into the mic, but it was heard by all.
Camille, I swear on your goddess if you even think to threaten my...
The High Inquisitor laughed a little, and the sound of her delight twisted Noah's spine in small circles.
Oh, Emily.
Despite the fact that the High Inquisitor held the mic away from her face, everyone still heard her, too.
I'm not here to threaten you or the abominations you decide to teach. Tonight we are here to play a game. But don't you for a moment forget what my order exists to do.
And don't you forget that if you or your angel cultists do anything to harm my students ever, I'll ravage your bodies and burn your church to the ground.
High Inquisitor Far's smile grew more hungry, and her voice softened so much that no one else could hear it. Noah, on the other hand, did. His magic flowed into his ears.
A reckoning is coming, my old rival. You will see the fury of my church and those whom we represent.
The Headmistress's voice also quieted to a barely audible tone.
You underestimate the lengths I will go to protect my school at your own peril.
And you underestimate the lengths I'll go to purge the...
Demi reached up and snatched the mic from the High Inquisitor's hand, which earned Demi a righteous glare. Demi screamed into the mic.
Who's ready for some Essence Ball?
Once more, the Arceados Academy's side of the gym roared with excitement, and this time, the St. Gabriel's side clapped. Issa nudged Noah.
Are you okay? You look a little pale.
I'm fine.
Noah clapped along with the crowd, urging the sickness welling up in his stomach to dissipate. What did High Inquisitor Farx mean? An undesirable answer whispered in the back of his mind. But surely that wasn't the case, right? Miss Miyoshi's voice rose above all others.
Kick their asses, Arceados! Show those holier-than-thou pricks what we can do!
Noah peered over at Miss Mihoshi, who jumped up and down in place. A righteous snarl covered her face, and she pumped her arms in excited fashion. The air around her slightly warped, and tinges of demonic magic filtered into the air, in the form of an aura of passion.
Kazuna has always been really into Essence Ball.
I can tell. It's kind of funny.
Just don't let her catch you staring at her, or she'll probably rip your heart out with her razor tongue.
The game got underway, and the varsity team for Arceados Academy moved into the center of the gym, across from the team from St. Gabriel's. One of the youngest players for Arceados Academy wore an unmistakable bright blue hijab. As soon as both teams collected in the middle, the referee stood between them and wove a spell to summon the playing. A bright flash engulfed the entire gym, and once it ended, a massive terrain filled the gym floor. Several large orbs floated toward the ceiling of the gym, and each orb displayed a different vantage point of the players, the field, and the other areas within the terrain. A thin, blue, transparent sheet of energy surrounded the playing field, and of course, everything within the energy field had been miniaturized. Each of the individual teams had been placed on opposite sides of the terrain. 2 glowing gates stood at either end of the field. The terrain itself had taken the form of ancient ruins in the middle of a thick, dense jungle. Trees were everywhere, which made directly viewing the players from the stands difficult. The orbs, however, showed the details that could not normally be perceived. As the images flashed across the orbs, Kachina came into view. Kachina had a temporary wince on her face, and her eyes darted around to the larger, older, and more experienced players. Though the players spoke to one another, no one outside the field could hear them. The referee blew a whistle, which could be heard normally, and suddenly, both teams were off. A small orb twinkled for those in the stands to see, but the teams engaged in play were most likely unaware of it. Without looking at the actual orbs, the smaller versions of the team moved impossibly fast throughout the playing field. Noah watched the field and turned his attention to the orbs.
Is there a time delay or something? This wasn't like the practices at all.
Oh yeah. I suppose this is your first actual Essence Ball game, huh? Time flows differently within the playing field than it does out here.
Wow. Use of time magic is pretty advanced. It's quite impressive to say the least.
Don't forget that Essence Ball has been around for a long time. And Mage Bloods, Demons, Devils, and even a few other people out of the St. Gabriel's camp collaborated together to make many magical improvements.
The orb followed a small collection of Arceados Academy students as they maneuvered into a small area of stone ruins. The ruins resembled the architecture of the Jaguarosti tribes of the distant jungle nation. Noah had once walked those ruins and among the people. He smiled as brief memories flashed across his mind's eye. Kachina was among the group, and the group of 4 constantly scanned the area around them. They couldn't see that the orb was within the area of the ruins, but the crowd did. One side of the gym howled in excitement, while the other side screamed in protest. Suddenly, a trio of St. Gabriel's athletes jumped out into the clearing. 2 of the students rushed where the 4 Arceados Academy players stood, and they conjured blast spheres. The 3rd student hung back though, and he didn't summon a blast sphere like his comrades. He simply stood where they emerged, and his eyes narrowed critically. When the pair of St. Gabriel's students lobbed their blast spheres arced widely and missed. That only seemed to encourage the Arceados Academy team, and they created and lobbed their own blast spheres. Though their projectiles also missed, they came closer to hitting the St. Gabriel's students, rather than being hit themselves. The St. Gabriel player who had lingered behind ran away and yelled toward his comrades, and in turn, the pair who had attacked followed him. A viewing orb shifted and revealed 3 more St. Gabriel's students, crouching down behind a pair of rocks in the direction of the fleeing St. Gabriel's trio. The 3 concealed players had blast spheres hovering above their hands. Noah's stomach sank, and he couldn't look away. 3 of the 4 Arceados Academy students gave chase, while Kachina yelled something at them. She stayed behind, and both she and the crowd watched as the ambush unleashed. The trio of fleeing St. Gabriel's students whirled around and created blast spheres, while those who were hiding jumped out and lobbed their blast spheres. While the 3 Arceados Academy students dodged the first volley, they were not so lucky the second go-around. 2 of them were struck, and thus they exploded. The last remaining player tried to run, but he was struck a second later. And just like that, 6 St. Gabriel's players moved into the small ruins, with only Kachina in sight. She had conjured a blast sphere, but she hadn't thrown it yet. The 6 St. Gabriel's players said something to one another, and they charged Kachina with blastospheres in hand. They threw them at her, but she shifted around, danced about, and closed the distance with stunning footwork. Kachina flipped through the air and then landed beside one of the enemy players. The female St. Gabriel's player could only watch as Kachina rammed her blastsphere right into her face. The St. Gabriel's player exploded within a few seconds. Her comrades created more blastspheres, but Kachina stepped up closer within their ranks. She punched, kicked, and rammed her shoulder into them. They tried to throw their spheres at her or hit her with it like she had done, but Kachina moved with expert grace. One of the St. Gabriel's players hit another one of his friends, and that friend exploded. Kachina summoned another blast sphere, and she pushed it into another player's chest. She twirled closer to another one, grabbed him by the shirt, and then twisted him around. At the last moment, one of the blast spheres from one of the other St. Gabriel's players hit him in the back. 2 more explosions happened in succession. The last 2 St. Gabriel's students cursed and swore, although what they said was lost. They conjured blast spheres, but they missed Kachina by a wide margin. Kachina, on the other hand, took one out, and then the other without much trouble.
Holy hello, she's good. Like, really good.
Yeah, it really is.
The dust settled, and Kachina stood alone in the ruins. She started searching around, and then she found the essence ball. To Noah's dismay, right before she grabbed it, a blast sphere struck her from behind. Kachina exploded, and a pair of St. Gabriel's students claimed the essence ball. St. Gabriel's team scored the first goal, but Arceados Academy scored the next 2. In fact, Kachina had been the one to score the last one. Miss Miyoshi had become even more excited with each additional goal, and her trash-talking had grown more vulgar with each St. Gabriel gained possession of the essence ball. Noah's attention on the game snapped out of focus as the halftime whistle blew. Both teams disappeared from their field. It was to Noah's understanding that each of the teams had been teleported to 2 separate locker rooms.
Whew, wow, the game is pretty intense so far.
Yeah. St. Gabriel's is really good this year.
A wide grin creased her face, and then she glanced past Noah. In an instant, her delight crumpled in on itself. A bitter frown formed, and her eyes went unfocused.
What's wrong?
Noah glanced behind him. A strange man had his eyes locked on Issa, and he moved with purpose. The man had a broad grin on his face, and a dark twinkle behind his irises. He wore a light blue suit jacket, a pair of dark-colored slacks, and the most affluent pair of scaled boots Noah had ever seen. He stopped beside Noah, but didn't even glance his way.
Good evening, Issa. I trust that you're enjoying this evening.
What do you want? I thought I made myself clear the last time. I'm going to get you the money.
But $1 million is such a large price, when all you could do is just comply with my wish, and then you'll get it.
Issa narrowed her eyes.
Is this man bothering you?
The man gave Noah a side-eyed glare.
Mind your own business, lest you wish to incur my wrath.
Oh,
Noah shifted and placed himself between the man and Issa.
well, it's clear that your presence is upsetting Miss Montbella, so I suggest you walk away.
Or what?
Or I'll make you walk away.
The man's eyes widened, and both of his fists formed tight balls. Issa placed a hand on Noah's shoulder.
Please don't, Mr. Cruz. This is Teagan Capudane. He's someone I really don't want to piss off.
Why? Oh. He's the one, huh?
Issa just nodded. Teagan Capudane smirked and poked Noah in the chest.
That's right, you worm. Don't, or Miss Montbella might not ever get the feather.
Issa winced and averted her eyes for a moment.
Feather? You're doing all of this for a feather?
Not just any feather, an angel feather.
A glacier crystallized and expanded within him, and Noah clenched his jaw tightly for a moment.
You have an angel feather? How?
The foreboding chill spread up to his throat, and yet, in the center of all that coldness, brewed a dark rage. Angel feathers didn't just fall out like some avian creatures. They had to be forcibly plucked.
It doesn't matter how. I just do. And the only way that Issa's gonna get it is if she either A, gives me $1 million, or B, marries me.
I told you, that is never going to happen.
It will happen sooner than you raising $1 million on your salary.
Issa stepped forward and poked him in the chest.
Actually, I almost have enough to pay you the $1 million. In fact, I'm finishing up the order right now, and you'll probably have it by next month.
Teagan's eyes swirled a moment, and his grin fell away.
Oh, that soon?
That's right. That feather's gonna be mine.
Well, then I'm changing the price to $10 million.
What?
$10 million. Or you can't have the feather.
That's not fair. I've worked so hard.
Well, life isn't fair, is it? But you'll either raise the money or marry me, or you'll never get that feather. You want your sister cured from the curse, right?
What's the point? You'll just raise the price again when I get close to 10 million.
You're not wrong. That leaves just one option. Yeah.
You Capudanes are the worst. I'll never marry you. Pathetic piece of shit.
Teagan snapped his fingers, and a magical glass tube with sealed ends appeared floating just above his palm. A slight magical aura surrounded the tube, and Noah knew that the tube could easily be dismissed again if he did anything. Noah studied the feather.
Well, then you'll never get this. Ever.
The feather in the tube was quite long, wide, and had a brown, almost golden hue to it. The length of the feather spanned from Noah's wrist to the top of his middle finger. A few more tears trickled down Issa's face, which only seemed to fuel Teagan's joy.
That's not an angel feather.
What?
That's not an angel feather. It's a harpy feather.
No, it's not. Shut up, you fool. What would you know about such things?
Noah's face contorted, and his jaw clenched for a moment.
I know if that is what you've been holding over Miss Montbella's head, teasing her with this dream of curing her sister, then you are the worst kind of person. You're either stupid, cruel, or both. How dare you?
Is he being serious, Teagan? That is an angel feather, isn't it?
Of course it is.
No, it isn't.
Shut up, or I'll...
All of you, shut up! Fucking hellos!
Miss Mihoshi stomped up beside the three of them. In the wake of Miss Miyoshi's roar, a great quiet wafted around them. Noah glanced around, and the entire gym was silent. Everyone watched them. Even those on the side where the St. Gabriel's students, family, and faculty sat. Noah shrank down a little, and he lowered his gaze in absolute mortification.
Now what the fuck are you all arguing about?
This bastard seems to think he could tell me that this isn't an angel feather.
Miss Miyoshi locked gazes with Noah, but then studied the feather a moment later.
It's not an angel feather.
In that moment, Teagan snarled and balled both fists. Rather than focus on Noah, he glared right at Miss Miyoshi. He opened his mouth to say something, but then his eyes opened wide, and all of his frustration fell away. A violent swirling of black and red energy flickered off of Miss Miyoshi's body, as if she were a bonfire of pure shadow. Her eyes glowed brightly,
Give me a reason to tear your fucking soul from your body.
I recognize you. You're the...
She's our head demon counselor and demon herself! If anyone could confirm your lie, it's her! You son of a bitch!
I can also attest to the fact that it's not an angel feather.
The High Inquisitor Far stood several feet away, and her hands were clasped just under her stomach.
If it were an actual angel feather, we would have to confiscate it. Such things are not meant for your cruel machinations.
Headmistress Darbo stood a few steps behind the High Inquisitor. The aura around Miss Miyoshi crackled with black lightning.
You wouldn't confiscate anything from us. Try it, and it would be an open war.
Having such a thing would mean someone had already committed such an act. Such feathers are not obtained without ill effort.
A brief silence lingered before Issa spoke again.
So you knew this whole time?! I can't believe you!
Teagan snarled and used his magic to slam the feather on the gym floor.
Fine, I lied. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. We both know that you need both an angel feather and a vial of angel blood for that stupid little cure of yours. You'll never cure your sister.
A light azure glow surrounded the many shards of glass on the gym floor. The shards floated up and angled their points toward Teagan, and then they shot forth. He yelped as they all dug into his thigh. Headmistress Darbo's hand glowed in the same azure light.
Dear me, it appears you are in need of medical attention. Get out and seek it, or you might find yourself more suited to visit the morgue.
Do you have any idea what you've done? I'm a Capudane.
Not only am I the headmistress of this school, but I am also a Darbo. No one threatens my teachers or my students. No one. I suggest you keep this to yourself, or you might force me to do something more drastic.
Teagan Capudane wilted, and then he hobbled away. The shards of glass still glowed with a light magical hue, and so he didn't really spill any blood on the gym floor. Headmistress Darbo walked up to Issa. The hate fire that had formed around Miss Mihoshi faded, and both she and High Inquisitor Far gazed at Issa Montbella. Noah watched Teagan leave, and then gazed around at the crowd. Everyone still watched the spectacle, as if it were a fantastic halftime show.
I'm sorry that he lied to you. I know you've worked so hard over the last few months making different artifacts.
Issa's eyes widened.
You knew.
Of course I knew. And before you ask, no, you're not in trouble.
The headmistress reached out and wiped the tears from Issa's face.
How about you head home for the rest of the evening? Tomorrow, you and I can have a meeting and discuss where you might be able to find the rare ingredients you seek.
She won't be able to find them. Such things are not casually discarded, and my order has hunted those who would even have something like that. It is fruitless.
Issa sobbed a little. Headmistress Darbo narrowed her eyes and she glared at the High Inquisitor.
Go away.
The High Inquisitor just shrugged and walked away. Headmistress Darbo wrapped an arm around Issa's shoulder.
Don't listen to her. We will find you what you seek. Come on, I'll walk you out.
As they left, Noah tried to watch them go, but Miss Mihoshi got in his face. Her voice was low. By this point, the rest of the gym had resumed its disinterest.
How did you know?
What?
Miss Miyoshi grabbed his arm in a tight grip. It didn't hurt, but it was secure.
Tell me right now. How did you know? All of the gates and portals leading to Heavenos have been closed for over 100 years, and no one has seen so much as a glimpse of one of those feathered bastards.
I don't know anything about the angels.
Fucking liar!
Seriously, I identified the feather as a harpy feather. When I was studying in Grecius, I had a few wild encounters with some of the harpy flocks. They're beautiful and deadly creatures, and I would never forget what one of their feathers looked like. They constantly molted and left them around in ruins and such.
Miss Miyoshi let out a slight huff.
never actually seen a harpy in real life before.
Well, I appreciate the experience. Harpies are quite strange. They can't shapeshift like demons or devils, and so they are quite strange to behold. They don't have any arms or hands like us, but large wings and talons at the end of the wings. Of course, they have feet talons too.
Miss Miyoshi stepped away and let go of Noah's arm.
Okay. I was wrong. I'm sorry for being so aggressive with you. This game really has me wired.
Did you just apologize to me? Wow, weird.
Oh, fuck you, Mr. Cruz!
Miss Miyoshi stormed off away from him, her usual heated and angry expression plastered on her face. A few seconds later, the end of the halftime whistle blew, and the game started up again. For the first time in a long time, Arceados Academy won.